We are opening up the Joint Committee for Cleveland City Council on Digital Inclusion. Thank you for all taking your seats. There's water and coffee, I think, over there. A few housekeeping issues. We're not going to call roll because this is a joint committee that does not require legislative hearings. So this is a general informational hearing on digital inclusion. I want to welcome all of our guests. I want to also introduce Salam Hussain from Islamabad, who's here on a Legislative Fellows Program. Salam, where are you? Right here. Okay. She's here on a Legislative Fellow. We had guests from Burma as well on Monday on a similar type of exchange. And we've already discussed a lot about digital inclusion with our friends from Burma as well as Pakistan. And this really is part of a worldwide event for Digital Inclusion Week that started on Monday and goes through Friday. So thank you for all of our guests for attending today. I'm going to bring up Bill Callahan, Samantha Sharpman-Syke, and we'll also bring up Jeffrey Patterson and Julian Curtis. Wanda Davis is here as well? Yeah. And then if our representatives from CMHA can come up as well, you'll be going second. The way this is going to work, we have approximately 9 groupings of people. We're going to be covering a host of issues, and I'll let Bill provide the contextual background for today's hearing. But in general, we're going to be covering issues pertaining to overall digital access and inclusion in the city of Cleveland. We're going to be hearing from CMHA in terms of the digital inclusion in the efforts that they're doing work in the public housing realm. We'll also be hearing from Cleveland Neighborhood Progress and a member of the Old Brooklyn Development Corporation in terms of the free Wi-Fi in the Council President's Ward. We also have digital inclusion and workforce that will be getting a presentation from the Council of Economic Opportunities in Greater Cleveland. Dr. Amy Schoen is here as well from the Urban Health Initiative from CASE, along with Adam Przinski. And then we'll also be, is Stephanie Turner?
No.
She won't be, okay.
She has to back up.
And then we're looking at a presentation by Lev Gonick, Chief Executive Officer at Digital C, in terms of new strategies for connecting the unconnected. And then Ken Kovac, Director from RET3 Job Corps, in terms of affordable computers. And then wrapping up, we're going to be hearing both in kind of a micro and a macro view. We're going to be hearing from some students from CMHA's digital training.
Well, ASC3, I think.
ASC3,
yeah. And,
as well as, I'm sorry. And then Leon Wilson, who's heading up the digital initiatives at Cleveland Foundation, will help wrap it up in terms of an overview of generally how all this fits in with the digital strategies of the city. Before we start, Council President, do you want to say a few words?
No, I just want to thank you and the other chairs for convening this important hearing. And I think, with all the important things that we do, we got to really look at, what digital inclusion means to education, to economic development, to how we use data to better provide services. So thanks for your initiative to bring this hearing together.
Great, thank you. And several of our members have 11 o'clock meetings that they'll need to leave for. So again, there's no legislation required, so there may be people coming in and out, as well as a guest. I'm aware that the City Hall garage is full, so people might be trickling in as well. Before we get started, why don't we go around the table with my council colleagues on introduction, your ward and the neighborhoods you serve.
Councilwoman Donna Brady, I have Edgewater, Cadell, West Boulevard, part of Jefferson, and part of Bel Air Puritas, Ward 11, West Side.
Councilman Polensik, Ward 8, representing North Shore Collinwood, East Glenville, and Collinwood Village neighborhoods.
All right, Ward 17, James Corners, West Park, Airport. Good morning.
Good morning. Phyllis Cleveland, Ward 5. I represent North Broadway, Campus District, part of downtown, Midtown, Kinsman Garden Valley, and Central, of course, where we have a project coming online tomorrow at the Cedar High Rise that I think we'll hear a little bit about today, Mr. Patterson. All right. And thank you all again for this presentation.
And I just want to mention, before we continue, Councilman Kane is the chair of Transportation, actually. Not part of the joint committee, but we appreciate you being here. Councilwoman Cleveland is chair of the Workforce and Community Benefits Agreement, part of this joint committee. Councilman Brancatelli, who I believe may be coming a little later, is also part of the joint committee as well. Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. My name is Kevin Kelly. I represent Ward 13, and I'm the president of Cleveland City Council. Ward 13 is mainly Old Brooklyn with a small piece of the Stockyards neighborhood.
Terrell Pruitt, I represent Ward 1. I have 3 primary neighborhoods: Lee Harvey, Leesville, parts of Mount Pleasant.
Brian Casey, Ward 16, Bel Air, Puritas, Longmead, Jefferson, and parts of West Park.
Good morning. I'm Cleveland City Councilman Zach Reed. I represent the 2nd Ward on the southeast side of the city of Cleveland, which includes Mount Pleasant, Union Miles, and Mill Creek, Slavic Village.
Good morning. Councilman T.J. Dow, represent Huff, St. Clair Superior, and Asiatown communities.
Great. And then I just want to mention that and welcome Director Merrill Gordon from our Department of Public Health. Thank you for your attendance today. Bill, please kick it off.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Councilman, for coming this morning. We'll try real hard to make it worth your time. This is a terrific turnout, and we really appreciate it, having a chance to speak to the Joint Committee. My name is Bill Callahan. I'm the director of Connect Your Community, which is an organization that promotes partnerships and strategies to close the digital divide in Cleveland, has been doing that since those glory days when we had a lot of federal money to do it, but we forge ahead. But I'm also the work part-time as the research and policy coordinator for the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, which is the organization that's actually sponsoring National Digital Inclusion Week across the country. And so I'm here today with Samantha Sharpman-Sissick, who is a member of the board and the research director for Connect Your Community, and also down at the end of the table, Mrs. Wanda Davis, who I think everybody knows as the director of the Ashbury Senior Computer Community Center, got that right, which is one of the most productive and reliable and generally excellent community computer training operations in the city.
If I could interject, we're very proud that Wanda was featured. Her photo was featured and information on the national page of the National Digital Inclusion Week. So thank you for representing us.
That's right. Well, she's so photogenic that we put that picture everywhere.
You didn't make the cut, Bill?
I'm sorry?
You didn't make the cut?
Not even close. Not even close. So Wanda and I were, our organizations are both founding members of the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, and that happened a couple of years ago. NDIA now has about 250 affiliated organizations in 35 states, including about 20 city governments, about 30 city library systems or local library systems, and a whole lot of nonprofit programs like ours. And so one of the things we wanted to do to start with is just on behalf of NDIA, thank City Council for doing this. It's a huge contribution to the national effort, and we really appreciate it. I know that Councilman Cummins had a kind of definition of digital inclusion up on the screen when we began, and it went out with the announcement for the hearing, and it's quite accurate. This is kind of the wording from the NDIA website about what we mean when we say digital inclusion, and it's actually pretty simple. It's an approach to closing the digital divide, which addresses all the different factors that people say keeps them from getting into the mainstream of computer use. Those 5 factors, which I'm not going to go into now. Actually, Mrs. Davis is going to talk about that at the end of our presentation, but that's kind of the schema for when we say the words, what we mean by them. So the 3 of us want to briefly cover 3 questions here today. I'm going to talk about what we know about the extent of digital exclusion, right? The thing we're trying to cure, right, in the city of Cleveland based on the data that we have. Then Samantha, who is our survey research guru, is going to talk about very briefly about some findings of a couple of big surveys that she's been involved in running over the course of the last few years. And then we're going to close up with Mrs. Davis talking about those basic factors and how they look in real practice in one of the city's most experienced training programs. And mainly, we're just trying to tee things up for our many colleagues who are going to be speaking later, including doing it quick, right? So that's our plan, right? So what do we know about the extent of digital exclusion in the city of Cleveland today? Well, here are the numbers from the most recent census, the American Community Survey for 2015. We have, according to that survey, about 168,000 households in the city. Of those, about 52% had some kind of what's called fixed broadband service, which basically means a wire going into the house, right? So it's DSL, cable service, possibly, in a few cases, internet over satellite, possibly in a few cases fixed internet over a 4G service. But that's an account which is actually in the house and serving people, right? And so about 52% of households in the city had that at the end of 2015. And I would just add that national surveys say not much is changing in these adoption rates over the last year or two. So that's probably a pretty good approximation. But anyway, it's the most recent data. And then if you add to that households that only have some form of mobile connectivity in the house, that's about another 11%. So that leaves about 38% of households in the city of Cleveland which do not have, or did not have at the end of 2015, a home broadband subscription of any kind. If you add in the dial-up households, which is still 0.3%, and you add up something called internet access without a subscription, which nobody knows what that means, right? But it may mean people in Councilman Cummins' ward who are just using the word 13 network. We're just not sure, right? But that's another 6%, right? So basically what we end up with is no home internet access of any kind whatsoever, right? About 31% of the city, according to the census. That puts Cleveland, the number without a fixed broadband subscription service, which is about 48%, puts us third worst among large cities with more than 50,000 households in the nation, based on those numbers. Detroit is worst. What a surprise. Brownsville, Texas is very, very conscious that they're second worst, and we come in third. This has been true on a rolling basis. Honestly, I have to say it's not a big surprise because guess who doesn't have internet access? Poor people, right? It's a very, very clear pattern. The home broadband access is closely tied to household income. More than half of all households with incomes below $35,000 didn't have any kind of broadband access in 2015. And that's the number I really want people to fix on, because that's the area in which you can be pretty sure that this is an economic problem, right? So here's where the people live who don't have it. This is data from, and I laid the ward numbers over it for your convenience, right? Fewer than 40% of households in the orange shaded census tracts had 10 meg service or better in 2015. In the red shaded tracts, it was fewer than 20%. So this is very much a neighborhood tied issue. And that's because poverty is a neighborhood tied issue. I know this is no mystery and I won't, belabor it, but those numbers are from the FCC. They're the most recent numbers from their Form 477 data, and they are based on reports from the providers themselves. This is not survey research. This is 100% reporting by AT&T, the cable company, Spectrum now, but it was Time Warner, and other providers. That's where the problem is. So Those are really the most important things that I want to leave people with statistically. I think I have just exactly enough. I brought 10 copies each of some of the charts. I was not sufficiently optimistic, but I'm going to leave them here or leave them for the chairman. So copies of those 3 charts are available for people.
Just for clarification, there's a question in terms of the white areas. Is it
It just means that
that they have
more than 40% of
10 meg?
households had some sort of fixed broadband service above 10 megs.
Okay,
Okay?
great.
So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Samantha Sharpman-Sissick to talk about what the survey research is telling us about some related issues.
Can people hear me without this?
You should use the
You
mic
should
'cause
sit.
Should I?
it's
Oh,
being streamed
is it?
live
Oh,
on the internet
my
and on
gosh.
TV, yes.
okay then.
Trying to be
I just feel bad for everyone
Trying to
that's
be
looking at the
inclusive
back
here.
of my head.
It's okay.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the research that I've done over the years. We want to know about how digital literacy skills, internet access, how do they impact people? What do they mean? So we start with the Connect Your Community project. We were, for those of you who might be less familiar, it was a federally funded stimulus project in between 2010 and 2013. We had a lot of local partners, many of the people that are still active advocates for digital inclusion now. You'll see some familiar names, and CHN and Ashbury, of course, and One Community, which I think is mostly transferred into Digital C, and others. And together, we trained over 8,000 residents of Cleveland and East Cleveland and created over 5,500 new broadband adopters during that period of time. So high level of investment, but also high output. And this is what that looks like. So you can kind of think back to that ward map. We did target a lot of those places that in areas that were greatly underserved. So we're going to start with, in 2012, pretty much at the end of the program, we did a pretty large-scale survey project. We interviewed 2,300 randomly selected CYC participants. And we asked them about all different things. I should also say that most of the people that we talked to had been through 30 hours of basic digital literacy training. They have now been, we've confirmed that they had an internet subscription, they have a computer. We think they're up and running. Now we want to know what they're doing with it. So we asked about program satisfaction. We asked about their connection status, who they ended up signing up with, who was their choice of ISP, et cetera. So I'm going to go through a couple different categories. And the first one here is health-related highlights. One thing that I think is pretty interesting is that 81, that's a huge majority of all of our respondents say that the CYC program helped their ability to find health information online. How many of us, particularly maybe first-time parents, because I know that for myself, I've been, every time my daughter had a sniffle for like her first year, I was on Google, right? So how many of us depend on the internet to find if we need to take that further and seek, more credible medical advice? We do that a lot, and our respondents showed that. 29% also said that they use their connection to communicate with their hospital and doctors. Now, with a lot of patient portals becoming more and more prevalent, this is not surprising. It's actually probably more surprising that that's a low number, but this is in 2012.
Probably increased.
It probably has. 55% of all survey respondents feel more socially connected to their family and friends since getting home broadband access. Again, maybe not the most unexpected result. A lot of people are familiar with social networking, but when we're thinking about our aging populations and how families move apart and people, can be estranged, this makes a really big impact in mental health as well. 59% of all survey respondents say that having home broadband makes them feel more independent. That really kind of reinforces the previous. But health isn't the only area. Workforce is a really predominant area of impact. We have 22% of those reporting to be in the workforce. Now, we define that by saying they're not retired, and they're not enrolled full-time as a student. Okay, so we excluded those people, but almost a quarter of those others say that they actually had some positive workforce impact from going through the CYC program. And 47% of those having experienced this impact actually use a computer for their job. So there's a direct correlation to their being able to enhance their ability to make money for their families. And the last is 35% of these people improved their employment status. So they are actually using a computer now for their job where they didn't before. Education. And this is going to be my last category here, but 78% of parents report that their kids are using their internet connection to do their homework and class projects. Nowadays, you cannot go through even grade school without a computer. Third graders are doing PowerPoint presentations in the class. I know my husband's a teacher. 83% of parents say their children spend over 3 hours a week on the computer doing schoolwork. This is these numbers are for students not in college. These are actually K through 12 was the qualifier. And 53% say that they use their connection to communicate with their child's school and teachers. And 60% say that they've increased that activity. Now, this is not up there, but I will also say there's a high prevalence of parents that report to use the home internet access to actually look up their child's homework for themselves so that they can better help their child learn. Because I don't know, has everyone remember that show? Are you smarter than a third grader or fourth grader or something like that?
Fifth grader.
It's fifth grader? Okay. Well, I can tell you I am not. And I would be right there with them. So this is a really, really important tool for empowerment of our children in school. We need to make sure that the parents are able to support them. So in 2017, earlier this year, I worked along with Wanda Davis on the Bridging the Gap survey. This is not central to Cleveland, but it is a very, very similar demographic. Basically, we took a random sample of over 2,900 subscribers. Basically, what Bridging the Gap was is it's a low income based. So it's if you're at 200% of the federal poverty level or below, you can qualify to get $10 a month mobile broadband. And this is in the Minneapolis Twin Cities area through PCs for People. And so we talked to these people and we asked them what that meant. Now, I should also say that not only is it $10 a month service, which meets a lot of the income thresholds that we've been able to determine, but also it's unlimited, it's unthrottled, uncapped. So you really see if cost is not a barrier, what do people really do with this information, with this access? And this is what we learned. Mobile's nice, but it's not the solution, okay? We always talk about how important mobile is and, oh, well, they don't have landline, but they can get Verizon, right? Well, guess what? The average internet user uses over 40 gigs a month in data. Do you know how much 40 gigs a month of mobile data plan retail is?
A lot.
Well, typically they don't sell them. You have to go to their unlimited plan at that point, right? And those are in excess of $100. So, and that doesn't include your, device that you have to go with it. The national average across the board is the cost of mobile plans is about $12 per gig. Okay. And those using their internet to pursue education, and those are the people that are saying, hey, I'm trying to get I'm taking classes online, I'm going through a workforce development online, things like that. They actually use 25 gigabytes per month more than the average user. So that 41, add 25 to it. This is a lot of data, guys. And those who are trying to work on workforce, right? Say they want to work on adding skills to make themselves more employable. They're using 13 gigs more. Now, this data is not reported data. I know the previous numbers were actually from surveys. These numbers here are directly from Mobile Beacon, the cellular provider, and this is directly from their data use. So this isn't reported, this is hard numbers. So with most mobile data plans starting at 3 to 5 gigs, it's not enough. It's not the solution. So I'm going to turn it over here at this point to Wanda. Thank you very much. I'll walk this down to you.
And as she does that, let's all remember, if you are a tweeter, please use the hashtag digital inclusion, hashtag CLE. We need to ramp up the discussion in the city and the region so that all those that are connected with you will understand the significance of today's hearing. And it is streamed live, and there's links utilizing those hashtags. Wanda, please.
Okay, my name is Wanda Davis with the Ashbury Senior Computer Community Center, and we've been a practitioner for 15 years. So we've been giving training to our Greater Cleveland residents for a very, very, very long time. And I know a lot say, well, we've trained a lot of people, and I often say, well, it seems like we've trained everybody, but every year there seems to be more. And the reason there's more is because technology continues to evolve. Everything changes. Within 6 months, things are outdated. And so the training has to continue. Actually, I think, is needed more today than it was way back when we started about 15 years ago, because nearly everything that we do now has an online presence, from our city government, our health services, our education, and I won't go through none of the stats that Sam went through, but all the things we do that are meaningful use are now have space online. And we've asked our residents to start using, and actually we've demanded that they start to use online services. A lot of times you know for sure that they can try and call different services and they don't get an answer. And then the answer for them is to go online. Well, if you don't have the training, you can't go online. So that is my reason for continuing in the work that we do, is that there are so many more people that we have to continue to help. I hope I'm not singing to the choir. I want you to know that intently, one of my main things for staying, I knew I'd never get rich, but I knew I would get rich with assisting people. Ashbury has actually had over 6,000 people to come through their doors. And through our partnerships, we've reached over maybe 12,000 people throughout the years. That's a lot, but it's still not a dent in what we need to do. And I know we have a little bit of time, so I'm going to talk a little bit about affordable devices, which is a lot of you think that because affordable devices are available now, which is the cell phones, the flip phones, and the tablets and all those. Well, guess what? Folks need training. They actually can get those devices. I think they can even get some for free. But as they become more online savvy, the people have to become online savvy. So therefore, there increases our need for more training. So every time there's an evolution, there's a need for more training. So that is a part of the program that I am adamant about, that has to stay within the foresight of everyone's eyes, is that training has to be continued throughout our area in order for us to try to start to compete in the global society. Support and internet, affordable internet. Now, as a ISP provider through one of the programs called Mobile Citizen Sprint, we have a program, a $10 service. But our service is prepaid. You have to pay up front. $223 may be small for some people, but for people I serve, that's a big bite. If they don't get an income tax return or don't get a gift, they may not ever be able to come up with that $223 at one time. So solutions still need to be made and found for all individuals. And even with that service, we want our folks to be able to compete for quality service. Now, it's one thing to have a piece of internet, but we want them to have a whole internet. We want them to be able to do what everybody can do on the internet. If I have a kid that's studying and he has the internet tied up from his parents, and the parent needs to look up something or needs something to do, or they may even have just a social activity going on, and this kid needs to attain the internet. If they don't have enough bandwidth, this cannot happen. So one has to wait for the other, and so I think this is something that needs to be addressed by us globally. It needs to be addressed by us statewide and right here locally. We're asking that everybody take a look at the need and start to try to come up with creative ways so that we can work together to ensure that we can have training, we can have affordable internet, we can have affordable devices, and the last piece is support. Once we even train people and get them used and take away the fear of using the internet or technological devices that we would like them to use, there's support. Where does that support come from? Right now, all of us do it. All of us that are trainers, my trainers that are here, we go that extra mile, and we do it. We have a student that calls us. We help them as best we can. And so, but that is another area that has not been addressed. But through partnerships like a group that's coming up, Digital C, and like CMHA, and a lot of other partners that we form, some of the needs are being met at a very slow pace, but they are being met. We just need more attention, more awareness. We need you guys to be more aware of what's really happening in Cleveland so that you can help us become #1 in the nation. And with that, that's my four-legged stool, and Bill, you can call the next one.
Great. Thank you so much, Wanda. I just also am reminded, when you tweet out those hashtags, digital inclusion and CLE, also include @CLE City Council, and that'll link everybody up. It's on our Facebook and Twitter pages as well. At this point, I'd like to turn to Jeffrey Patterson, the director at CMHA of IT, and Donald Butler, the planning coordinator, as well as Julian Curtis. Actually, I got the titles mixed up. Please, please, Jeff.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Council President, members of Council. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to be here today. As the Chairman mentioned, my name is Jeff Patterson. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for the Coyote Metropolitan Housing Authority. CMHA is the 7th largest housing authority in the nation. We have over 10,000 housing units across the county. We have another 15,000 vouchers across the county, and then combined we serve about 55,000 people across Cuyahoga County. When you listen to the stories that Bill and that team talked about, you hear them talking about digital inclusion and the importance of digital inclusion. The constituency I represent is the low-income residents across the county. And sometimes folks get left behind when we talk about this digital inclusion effort. We've been very fortunate through the help of Bill and Wanda and Digital C and some other organizations that have reached out to us to specifically give us the opportunity to engage our residents in being a part of this digital inclusion initiative. To be able to have access at schools, which I think the schools have done different programs, to have access through the libraries, which I know that they've done different programs, but now to be able to have the opportunity to have that access at home, I think it is very important. So I'm going to ask our Director of IT, Mr. Donald Butler. He's going to talk about some initiatives and how we started this digital process a couple years ago in conjunction with the City of Cleveland. Then our project coordinator, Julian Curtis, is going to give you a few examples of some of the different projects that we have either currently going on or that we're going to be doing over the next few years, and then I'll come back and wrap it up. So, Donald?
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
In August of 2015, CMHA received notification from HUD that the City of Cleveland and CMHA was one of 28 cities and housing authorities across the country selected to participate in the Connecthome Initiative demonstration project. We're the only city and housing authority in the state of Ohio to participate in the demonstration project. The three main goals of the Connecthome Initiative: one is to assist low-income households with either acquiring free or low-cost, high-speed internet. Two is to assist households with acquiring the devices needed to use that internet access. And then the third component is providing digital literacy training. After attending the national convening where HUD not only announced the 28 cities and housing authorities, they also announced the different organizations that had made commitments to the Connecthome Initiative. And depending on which city you're referencing, different organizations made commitments to that particular city. In Cleveland, Sprint, which as you know is a cellular provider, but also qualifies as a ISP, made the commitment to the city of Cleveland and CMHA. Since those initial commitments, other organizations have committed. AT&T now is part of the Connecthome Initiative. Cox Cable is part of the Connecthome, T-Mobile. But what you're able to do really is driven by the commitment made to your particular city. One of the things that we attempted to do was to add a sort of a local flavor to our project, and we created the Cleveland Connects program. And we used that program and the opportunities through the Connecthome Initiative to reach as many CMHA residents and City of Cleveland residents in low-income status as we possibly could. So I'm going to turn it over to Julian now to give you an overview of the activities that we've done so far.
Good morning, Council. As Mr. Butler and Mr. Patterson mentioned, some of the things that we've done so far here locally in the city of Cleveland and on the periphery start with our partnership with Sprint and providing hotspots and tablets, over 400 of those devices, to youth K-12 residents of our community centers across the city. So these folks, or young people, were engaged in after-school programming, participated heavily, and were rewarded with those devices to further their education and to provide that access at home that may not have been present. We've also done similar projects like this with adults and providing digital literacy training in partnership with Bill Callahan and Connect Your Community, as well as Wanda and the Ashbury Senior Computer Community Center, where we transport folks to a computer center, allow them to receive digital literacy training over the course of a month or so, and as a reward, or as a once the course is completed, they receive a refurbished desktop computer for their home, and access to the internet is made available based on the neighborhood and what's available. We try to find the cheapest solution for them to get all three of those components: training, the device, and connectivity. This was also done in Quarrytown and the Berea community in partnership with Ball and Wallace University. We got 5 or 6 students from Ball and Wallace to join us over at the Quarrytown facility, set up a kind of a temporary computer lab over several weeks in partnership with that university and the commitment of the residents in that building. 17 to 20 individuals completed the course and self-dismantled the computer lab by taking the computer they worked on over the month, was now theirs for their unit to take back to their residents. In terms of our future projects that we're working on, and in future as in tomorrow, we make the official announcement of our high-speed internet project that we're working on in partnership with Digital C, RET3, Ashbury, Bill Callahan, and many others, where Cedar High Rise will be fully lit using a line-of-sight technology that allows internet to be transmitted through the air rather than through fiber on telephone poles or in the ground, but rather through the air in a much cheaper fashion. And all 156 households in that high-rise will receive high-speed internet at a very high quality, along with training if they elect to receive it, as well as a device in the name of a refurbished desktop computer. So that equipment is also on 5 other CMHA rooftops, and then in future phases we'll turn each of those buildings on. And lastly, we, in partnership with HUD, or kind of with the instruction of HUD, we have broadband ready development. So when we do build new construction or new properties in the community, these are now equipped with Ethernet connections, and the infrastructure is in place. You don't have to dig into the walls or make any enhancements. The enhancements have already been made. So we're ready, preparing our future properties for the future to receive this access at a high quality level for the individuals that we serve.
Thank you, Julian. In closing, I just want to say again, we appreciate the leadership of council for bringing this issue to the forefront. I think it is very important that digital literacy reach out to all. The internet is becoming as essential in a home as a refrigerator or a stove. You become that dependent on it to make medical appointments, to pay your rent, to be able to apply for jobs, to be able to do so many different things. And having that comfort with the internet is very important. You know, a lot of us, when we were in school, we took the standardized test, and we used to have the number 2 pencil, and you did the circles, and you did all that. Well, a lot of those standardized tests now are given with computers, and they have mouses. And if you're working at a mouse and you're a child and you don't have the opportunity to get familiar with that mouse, all of a sudden you become frustrated. And maybe you don't score as well on that test, not because you don't know the information, but because you become agitated and frustrated with not being able to utilize that mouse. We have to work to try to find ways to get not just the youth, but also adults that ability to be able to get the internet, and to be able to get the internet and have the ability to utilize it, get comfortable with it. The more you know, the more you use it, the more you're able to get out of it. So some of the initiatives that we're taking are things that I think in the long run would help us. I would love for us to be able to have the opportunity to do more. The one challenge that we face is that a lot of this is not one size fit all. You can't just find one provider that could do something, do the same thing everywhere. So a lot of times you have to come up with different partnerships and different collaborations in order to be able to get that service. And I have to say, and my last point will be, and I think Councilman Cummings, you have, I know you've been to a couple of these sessions where the Ashbury team has done training for the residents. There's no better feeling than when you see someone who has completed one of these training programs. It's as if they just got a PhD from Yale. There's enthusiasm, there's passion, there's commitment, because for them, taking that step to overcome that barrier, that fear, that computer, and being supported, and having people like the trainers at Ashbury and others that are supporting those individuals as they go through that, it gives them something to be successful for. And so many of them have then reached back and told their friends and talk about how they're now able to, go on Facebook and communicate with their kids through, Facebook and other mechanisms. It's just a great thing. So I appreciate, again, Council showing the leadership in bringing this to the forefront. And I thank, again, all the community partners that have worked with CMHA to help allow us the opportunity to try to provide this for our residents throughout Cuyahoga County. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And I just want to mention for those, let's see a show of hands, who knew about or attended the housing hackathon that CMHA and Digital C and others put on? Yeah, there's a lot of believers here. So congratulations, that was a wonderful event. And to your point, Mr. Patterson, those graduations, not only do they get the training and certificate, but then they get a computer. So the pride and the camaraderie amongst those people that go through that training is really contagious in terms of the other residents in the building, the friends and the family that they have. Family members showed up. Very exciting graduation, so I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So we will call,
Councilman, just one question,
please,
Mr. Patterson. You mentioned that the access is sightline access in terms of, so I'm just wondering, because I can see Cedar High Rise from my house, so does that mean that I can? I just want to know you that. All right, thank you.
do you want to announce the next guest?
Okay, we're going to bring up our next stage of presenters. And again, thank you all for getting us started. And now, if we could have come to the table the representatives from Cleveland Neighborhood Progress and Old Brooklyn CDC, and also Mark Batson from the Council for Economic Opportunities in Greater Cleveland.
And before we get started, Councilman Dow, you have a point for Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, I wanted to let him know that we have put an advisory board together at Addison Square Apartments.
Okay.
And we've met with those residents a number of times. And they do want a computer lab, and so I told them that I would work with them to do that. So we have a work group together. We've met multiple times, and we're at the stage where we're going to identify the location, which I think your folks down there have been very receptive to that and been very helpful. And we will start moving those computers in there very soon. But of course, we need your support. And I hope that's something that you'll get behind and support the residents of Addison Square Apartments. Again, we've put an advisory board together in that location to do that. Also want to quickly just touch on the fact that what we are doing in Ward 7 and what we've been working on for the last probably about year or 2 years now is putting together our Huff Connector, our resource center that touches on the very thing that we're talking about today. We'll have computers in there. We'll be outreaching out to the high-rises in Ward 7s, but we'll have a computer lab in there. We'll have workshops that center around, just as well as in Addison Square Apartments, that center around computer literacy. We will be open for job training, all those types of things. The synergy will be happening right in Ward 7. And also with our youth groups, we'll be collaborating with them. And it all centers around closing the digital divide gap. So it's going to be called the Huff Connector. We'll be breaking ground this summer, and we'll be working with Digital C, and we have a lot of partners, surrounding partners around Ward 7 that will also be putting sweat equity into this project. So we're very proud about it. It's good that we're talking about this because that is what the Resource Center is going to be about. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, I would love to have the opportunity to sit down with you and the advisory board to talk about how we can make that a reality. So thank you again. We appreciate it.
Great, and thank you, Mr. Patterson. And before we continue, I just want to mention that we were joined by, a while ago, Councilman McCormick. Councilman, do you want to just introduce yourself and the communities you serve?
Good morning. Kerry McCormack. I represent Ward 3 of the City of Cleveland, which includes the neighborhoods of Downtown, Ohio City, Tremont, and Stockyards.
Great, and is Mark Batson here yet? Not yet, okay, so we'll, if we want, Dr. Schoen and Adam Brzezinski, you can come up as well, so we have a quick transition to the next presentation as well. Erica and Jeff, can you introduce yourselves? And then, Erica, you can go first, please.
Sure. Wonderful. Well, good morning, Erica Anthony. I'm with Cleveland Neighborhood Progress. I'm our Senior Director of Advocacy, Policy, and Research. Also here representing HAT Cleveland, which I'm a co-founder of. And thank you to Council President, Chairman, and all council members for hosting this hearing today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Council President. Jeffrey T. Varespi. I'm the Executive Director of the Old Brooklyn Community Development Corporation, where we work with Council President on a free public Wi-Fi program called Old Brooklyn Connected.
Great. Eric, would you like to start? This is, again, a discussion on digital inclusion and neighborhood development.
Sure. Again, thank you for having us today. So I have a couple of comments, but a couple of sort of disclaimers before I dig into my testimony. First, I just wanted to share, I think, one, just commend Council for hosting this hearing. I think this is first of many. I know there are multiple conversations taking place throughout the county and throughout the city on this topic, but we hope that this is one of many opportunities. I think just in the first set of presentations we had this morning, it's clear that as in any sector, there's a lot of people, a lot of entities that are involved in sort of the financing, the operation, the strategic vision behind how do you make something come to fruition. And I think the thing that's different about digital inclusion is that it touches everything. Whether you're talking about education, whether you're talking about health, social justice, law enforcement, really every facet of our community and our neighborhoods has an impact to digital inclusion, which makes it further complicated to figure out the best strategies for implementation. But I think we have quite the adequate sort of cohort within this ecosystem of organizations and people that are dedicated to making sure that we continue to put Cleveland on the map as it relates to ensuring that we are, in fact, inclusive when it comes to the digital economy. I think at the heart of it all, if there's anything you remember from what I say today, is knowing that at the heart of it is the residents, right? It's the residents of this city, and I think there's a couple of different ways we want to empower our residents. We want to, one, make sure, as our first presenters talked about, that they have access. Access is critical because it does touch into workforce. It touches into how their children access information to further promote their education. But we also want to make sure that we're thinking about how do we turn our residents into creators and not just end users. I will say with disclaimer that I'm not a technologist in the sense that I'm a coder or a graphic designer, but at least I think in the evolution of Hack Cleveland have a better understanding and if anything more of an appreciation to the opportunity that is available to our residents when it comes to being a part of that digital economy that is still evolving. We're constantly learning every day new technology and new ways to be a part of that ecosystem, but I think we want to think about how do we increase the mobility of our residents, and one of those ways, there's multiple ways we can do that, is really thinking about the investments that we're making in the digital economy and how we can turn our residents into end users. So for purpose of today, I'm sort of, I said, wearing two hats, both that of Neighborhood Progress. I'll say just 10 seconds about it because I hope everyone knows who we are. But we are the local intermediary for the CDCs, the Community Development Corporations here in the city of Cleveland. We've been doing this work for nearly 30 years. But last year in 2016, we went through strategic planning. It's been a good part of 2016 doing that, really digging in deep into better understanding how we can be instrumental in supporting our CDC, supporting our residents, supporting our council persons, and all those that play into community and economic development. And there were a couple of things that sort of bubbled up in that process, one being around racial equity and inclusion. So I think folks know that we are in excuse me, what we're calling our year of awareness building, partnering and bringing in a group out of Greensboro, North Carolina to offer training to better understand, for folks that participate, to better understand how does racial equity and racism still play into many of the challenges that we're experiencing, not just in Cleveland, but really across the nation. And it's something that we are pivoting to in the sense that it's not that we haven't talked about this topic or delved into this topic, but we think that there needs to be a baseline understanding of how these facets of racism still play into many aspects of neighborhood development, community and economic development. And we feel that in order to implement a fruitful strategy, we can't do that until everyone is on the same page. And that's critical because it segues into an area that historically Neighborhood Progress has not been a leader in, and that is digital inclusion. And we're very fortunate that Neighborhood Progress has a couple of staff and other leaders in the community that formed Hack Cleveland a couple of years ago. And really it came out of and was birthed out of fear, anxiety, anger. If folks recall, a couple of years ago, we here in Cleveland were experiencing some horrific incidences. Ferguson, Baltimore, a lot of things were happening in our nation and still are. And honestly, a group of friends came together and said, we have to do something. And we don't know what that it is, but we think that technology is a lever point as it relates to thinking about how do we leverage and utilize technology to address some of the social justice issues and ills of our community. And how can we bring together what we're calling architects, right? So you don't necessarily have to have a technology background, but how do we bring together organizers? How do we bring together people who do, in fact, have technical knowledge and understanding of how to create and code and create systems, and think about how we can serve as a partner to our council people, to our members of government, and think about how do we connect the social issues of our community with technology and create solutions. So a couple of things that we have done in that space. We hosted a hackathon a couple of years ago, a civic hackathon, which is slightly different than I think what organizations or companies like the Highlands of the world may do. Similar, we didn't keep people overnight. I know the CMHA folks did, and I'm sure they had fun with that. But really, we brought together community organizers and leaders and said, what are you dealing with? Like, what's happening? What's happening in your community? And we also have people here who do have technical knowledge, and let's figure out if we can connect you with those folks and figure out if we can create technological solutions. So a couple of things that bubbled up from that two-day event. So thinking about the time period 2 years ago, we had just received our consent decree here in the community. It had yet been digitized at that point. It was just a hard copy. And some of the participants of that hackathon felt that that was critical that residents had access to being able to look at the consent decree online and not necessarily having to get a physical hard copy. So there was a group that did in fact do that, and it was really quick and really easy. And to my understanding, the police commission and the other council that's monitoring the consent decree are still utilizing that. And it seems simple, but it's something that now those that do have access to get to the internet, whether that's in their home or through their local library, we're now able to look at this document that at the end of the day really does impact all of us in Cleveland, even if you're not directly involved in the implementation of it. So just one example of how we envision bringing that together. So as a result of the work that Hack Cleveland's been doing for the past 2 years, we at Neighborhood Progress really wanted to leverage their energy, their expertise, and basically, requested that Hack Cle and Digital Inclusion be a part of Neighborhood Progress's strategic plan, which it is now. So over the next couple of years, we, along with many of the people in this room, will dig in to better understand how we can be partners in this space, how, again, we can empower the residents of our city, and work with the council and others in figuring out how do we continue to be a leader in this space. I think we've done some really innovative things collectively as a city, but we're just at the beginning, and there's a lot of energy and resources and time that is needed. And again, as I started, I hope that we continue to have this conversation, continue to have deeper dives into all aspects, because really, I think what you'll hear by the end of today is really many facets of the ecosystem, whether you're talking about open government, transparency, openness to getting access to information, as our previous folks talked about, broadband connectivity, internet access, whether you're talking about health, which you'll hear soon. So there's so much here that we obviously could not do this topic justice in a 2.5 hour hearing. So just really invite you to connect with the groups that are represented here today and have a deeper dive, and we look forward to working with you.
Great, thank you very much. Oh, and I'd like to just mention, it'll be brought up probably several times today, but Erica and Hack Cleveland is also part of this broader Cleveland Civic Tech and Open Data Collaborative, as well as Dr. Schoen at Health Data Matters, and in other groups, Open Cleveland, Open Neo, Digital C, Neo Can Do, and there's probably more. I'll pull up a slide later, and we'll make sure that we talk about the work of the collaborative. Jeffrey.
Great, thank you.
And by the way, Councilman, do you want to say anything before Jeffrey starts? You'll let him do it. Okay, please.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Chairman. I will speak briefly about Old Brook and Connected, but then we'll defer to Council President Kelly through the chair over some of the more technical aspects and kind of his role in the vision and stewardship of the program. For those of you who don't know, and it would be unfortunate if you don't, Old Brook and Connected is what I would consider to be one of the most underappreciated, exceptional civic projects happening in America right now. This is a project that for years now has been providing free public Wi-Fi to residents of Ward 13, and it only happens through leadership and through collaboration. It's so nice to see some of our collaborators here in the room, RET3, Digital C, Bill Callahan, some folks who, without their partnership, this would not be a successful project. Let me speak briefly from the community development side on its impact, and then again, I will defer through the chair to the Council President to speak more technically about the project. It has 3 huge impacts. The first is on equity, and that has been spoken about, and it will be continued repeated all day. But as we've learned for students using this to do their homework, as we've learned for seniors accessing their ability to check medical records, pay utility bills, even see their grandkids through Facebook. This is an incredibly important issue that if you do not have that access, you fall further behind every day in the community. And to allow the residents of Ward 13 to access high quality internet service allows them to be connected to the world, be connected to each other, and to spend their precious resources in other areas. The second piece is economic. There are residents who move to Old Brooklyn because this is a service that we provide. This is an economic generator. This is something that we're also working on, the potential being a business and a job generator. If if you don't have to worry about AT&T, if you don't have to worry about Time Warner Cable or what is it, Spectrum these days, and you can just pop open the page, log on to the Old Brooklyn Connected, where we get about 100,000 hits a month. That's a great service, and that gets you in the door quicker and growing quicker, whether that's growing your family or growing your business. And the third piece is about community health. There is a lot of research out there right now about social connectivity, especially for seniors who are not connected socially. You see an incremental and unfortunate deterioration of their holistic health if they are not connected to family, if they're not connected to community, if they're not connected to the world. And our seniors are a very vulnerable population throughout the city of Cleveland, and in Ward 13 we have many seniors. The council president has worked closely with the CDC and with our partners to ensure that we get seniors low-cost equipment, we get them trained, we get them connected so that they can make doctor's appointments, so that they can refill their prescriptions, so that they can know what's going on in the world around them and live a high quality of life. So that's about, I will speak about from our end. We are so honored to work on this project, provide the customer service and community engagement with our partners, and as I said earlier, would not have been possible without collaboration, without the visionary leadership of the council president.
Great. Thank you very much.
You want me to chime in?
Please, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Jeff. This project has really been, very, very important to the community. But just as we sit here today and seeing the faces, I think it's just a short bit of history. Is when this project first started, those really were good days in terms of availability for training and all. This was during when there was money for Connector Community. And we worked closely with Connector Community to train residents in Old Brooklyn at Esbrook Recreation Center, at the library. We had, when we used to have the old conference room at the CDC, we had training there. We worked with RET3 to provide low-cost laptops and desktops to people with the goal that everybody have a connection and a device in the neighborhood. And it's been going fairly well. But just kind of when you take a point now during Digital Inclusion Week as kind of an inflection point. The stuff is getting old, and if I were to give a broad swipe of how it's used now, families like myself or middle-class families most often have a paid service and use this as a backup. And while I can't tell you the number, I do know that when it goes down, we have a sector that goes down, we know exactly who uses it, and it's mainly seniors, it's mainly the people that use it as a primary service, it's mainly seniors, it's mainly people that can't afford to have that connection to their home. So I think that the value in it is, I don't care if you use one of our providers and have a paid service, or you use this as your primary service, but everybody needs to have something. And I think that as we roll out Old Brooklyn Connected 2.0, we really have to focus on bringing this to a standard that everybody in Old Brooklyn does have an opportunity to log on. And again, because the stuff's getting old, it's getting a little spottier, the connection's not as strong, and also it became less strong as more people started to use it. So we're going to be ramping up all of that, and really look forward to working with all the partners that got us started to launch Old Brooklyn Connected 2.0 and make it so that everybody has that strong, reliable service and a device in Ward 13. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Council President, if I may, just to respond to that, would be remiss if I didn't say, I think one of the comments you made really hits on the need for research in this space as well. You made a comment saying, needing to know what's best for the residents, right? And that's going to vary neighborhood to neighborhood, city to city, county to county. So I think there's two aspects to research that, I would encourage this council and others in the room to think about, is not just better understanding, which is changing every second of the day, right? And we have to acknowledge that we're sort of living in the moment of this evolution. So even the research we do today is going to be outdated, but we have to sort of stay on top of that. The other aspect is, from the workforce side, is to better understand and distill the number of available opportunities in the tech space. I think, again, unless you're in the space and have an understanding of what the opportunities are, it can be misleading, right? To an individual listening to a commercial about an opportunity to engage in this training training program or just seeing a flyer in the library. So the more we can do and work with the employers that actually are hiring individuals to know what jobs are available and what are the qualifications that are necessary for those individuals, because not every opportunity can spring off from a boot camp. Some jobs require a much deeper dive and obviously a more comprehensive education to be successful. But then also, once that individual is at that place of employment, we also have to acknowledge the continued disparity in the tech field, where many sectors have a lack of people of color. So it's not just having the qualified skills to get into that space, but what's going to happen once you're in that space, and is that going to be a culture and an environment that's inviting to you as a person of color to be successful? So just a couple other points to think about as we delve into this.
And just a quick response is when we first launched this project, that was the one nut we couldn't crack, was available research to track those things. We very much wanted to track, where are we now? What are the needs of the community? What do we need to go forward? But we just, we couldn't afford that, and there wasn't a lot of people that did the type of research that we needed. So we're kind of left with more general knowledge, a little more anecdote than we would like. But I agree, we need that research. It's hard to come by, and it's not for free. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Erica.
Very good. Thank you very much. We are joined by Mark Baston from the Council of Economic Opportunities in Greater Cleveland. Mark's the Chief Operating and Chief Information Officer, and Mark is going to be discussing digital inclusion and workforce preparation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the City Council inviting all of the individuals that you have invited here today to engage in this important discussion. I have, born and raised in the city of Cleveland, and formerly I was a project director for the city of Cleveland's Minority Business Development Center in the mid-'90s. I also did some work at Huntington Bank as a regional loan officer, and as then entered graduate school and obtained a degree from Case Western Reserve in information technology, and started a career in more or less information technology and healthcare and those types of things. But I've had a broad background in the evolution of technology in this region, and had some specific experiences as well as far as workforce and inclusion. One of the interesting things about it is that, I once had a discussion with a physicist who told me that, when they say, "Beam me up, Scotty," and he says, he said, "Have you ever seen that?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Technically, there's people that believe that can actually happen, so." He said, because theoretically, it should be able to happen. So, when you think about things like that, and then where I'm going with this is that where we are with technology is not things that are theoretical impossibilities. They work. These things that, whether it's from the times that we were, just having PCs and then evolving into networks and then the internet, and now we're at the stage of Internet of Things. Regions and cities and areas around the world have shown that they could use this and leverage these technologies for the economic empowerment of their region and also for the betterment of the citizens. So, as someone else had said earlier, it should be something that we should look at broadly as far as investing in all the different technologies and avenues there are to engage in new and innovative technologies for ourselves, for the betterment of the community, and also for the citizens around, specifically in Cleveland. I think that it's important also to understand that all organizations utilize these tools now to create efficiency and innovation, and cities and municipalities, government agencies can be used as the tools to leverage, more investment in newer technologies. We were discussing, a group of us was discussing a grant that we were going after, a large grant from, there was Foundation was giving a grant for $100 million for a region to try to do some new and innovative things. And, but there are cities out there that are financially sound, that are paying, for example, IBM to do Internet of Things all around their region. So, they're financially sound and they're using those resources to bring in professionals to do this. So no matter which way we do it, we have to find a way to garner our resources together, and also, private and public, to leverage whatever technologies we can so that people can, find a way, whether it's, becoming a network analyst, a programmer, or a software specialist, or something like that, that we're allowing our citizens to be able to, fulfill their dreams in whatever way they can see possible. Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, very good. Thank you very much, Mark. And next, we're going to have a discussion regarding digital inclusion and community health by Dr. Amy Schoen, Director of the Urban Health Initiative at Case's Medical School, as well as Adam Brzezinski, Assistant Professor of Medicine and Sociology for the Center of Healthcare and Research and Policy at Metro Health and Case as well. Good morning and welcome. Thank you.
Can you pull up our slides?
Of course.
Thank you. I'm Amy Schoen, and as Brian said, I direct the Urban Health Initiative at the School of Medicine. The mission of my program that the dean started 6 years ago was to see how we could improve the health of people in the population of Cleveland, Cuyahoga County. And when I first started that and looked around for the best ways to do that, one of the first things I came up with was the need for a platform where everybody could look at health of the population and the factors that affect health. And how many of you think that healthcare is what makes people healthy? Good, it doesn't. What this slide tells you is that health care only accounts for a small fraction of differences in people's health, but health behaviors and social and economic factors and the physical environment make a huge difference. This is our health data platform, and by the way, this would be a wonderful tool for looking at how the Wi-Fi in Brooklyn is affecting that community, because we look at down to the census tract level, and I imagine this is not a big surprise to you, but to see the immense disparities in, of course, poverty, unemployment, and I think it's very interesting, the association with the proportion of a census tract that's Black and the availability of high-speed internet. I think that's about the best example of institutionalized racism I have ever seen on the part of the internet service providers in not making that available. But what we also know is that those bars represent the proportion of people in a neighborhood that have internet access at least 10 megabits per second. And you can see that on the left, people where there's only about 10% of people in the having internet, they have the highest unemployment, and as you get to neighborhoods with higher proportions of people on the internet, you get less unemployment. And how unemployed people are going to get jobs without the internet is really something beyond me. This is just kind of another way of looking at it, and this is showing you census tract by census tract. So the orange bars are the proportion of people in that census tract that have internet. And you can see generally that on the left, the people with only 10-20% of people in the neighborhood with internet, you have the higher unemployment and lack of high school education. In terms of health disparities, they are massive in our community, among the highest in the country. And so these are just showing you the areas in red are where people have higher blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, lack of physical activity, which is an important determinant of health. And disparities in some of the health behaviors, smoking, doesn't exactly track geographically, but at any rate, this platform, this Health Data Matters, enables you to look at these sort of relationships. But to go back to this model of what affects health, I came to a couple of years ago realizing that internet access is what can affect all of those determinants of health and in a very, very major way. And as I got into looking at this a couple years ago, I encountered Bill and Wanda in one community and Adam, and I have to tell you that now that I've spent a lot of time speaking at national conferences about this, what we have in Cleveland in Bill and Wanda and Sam and this vision of training is somewhat unique in the country, and we have an opportunity to really, really leverage that and scale it up, because if everybody who needed training tried to get it, we don't have the resources. So we're coming up with some innovative ways of addressing that I'll tell you more about in a minute. But you've seen this 3- or 4-legged, 5-legged stool that you need equipment, skills, access, and content. But the portal to the electronic health record, for which you need equipment, skills, access, et cetera, opens the door to all sorts of ways that you can affect your health. How many of you have ever logged on to your patient portal, MyChart at the clinic or Metro Health?
Show of hands, please.
Absolutely. What about you all? And how many of you, if you had to see a doctor who didn't have that electronic portal, would not see that doctor? Because at least for me, I feel like I can't function in addressing my own health without the incredible convenience that the portal provides, and particularly for people who have given up their landlines, which is the low-income population, and even people dependent on mobile technology where they run out of data, they run out of minutes. Having that portal allows you to communicate with your provider at a time that's convenient to you. So I'm going to turn it over to Adam, who's going to talk a little bit about efforts to train people to use these portals, and then I'm going to cycle back with a big way that we can really scale this up and get massive numbers of people trained.
Well, thank you all for your attention and interest in that great transition, Amy. I'm going to tell you a little bit about 2 projects and hand it back to Amy, I think, then. The first project is this called Patient Portals and Broadband Internet Inequality. This is a paper that my colleagues and I at Metro Health and Case Western, together with Bill Callahan, have worked on for nearly 2 years now. The paper was recently published in the Journal of the American Medical Informatics Association. And what we did in this analysis was to think about, well, is internet use preventing our patients at Metro Health from using the patient portal? That was our question. And so I recently had my own experience with this. I got a new phone and about 2 weeks ago, and I sort of had my password saved on the old phone, and I downloaded the new MyChart app on my new phone, and I didn't know the password, and I forgot it and managed to lock myself out. And so I'm locked out.
Every day.
Now I can't actually, I'm due for an appointment. I have 3 prescriptions that need to be renewed. And I actually have no clue how I should schedule that appointment. I work at Metro Health. I'm not exactly sure how I'm supposed to refill my prescriptions or have an appointment with my doctor until I manage to get my password reset on this app, which I will eventually do, but I'm busy. They're not that urgent of prescriptions, right? So if you imagine that happened to me in just these 2 weeks, now imagine like really large numbers of people who go without the ability to do that all day, every day in Cleveland, and that really is what our research is meant to inform. So this first slide here shows you that over a 5-year period, we pulled data from Metro Health's electronic health record on all of the patients who had an outpatient primary care visit. It's greater than 300,000 patients, and among those 300,000 patients, less than 25% used the MyChart patient portal. So you can see that not a lot of folks were using it. We also noticed that by race and ethnicity, whites are more likely to use it than folks of racial and ethnic minority backgrounds, blacks, Hispanics, and other races. Older folks, so folks over 80 are particularly less likely to use our patient portal. This slide actually compares, so we use data from the Federal Communications Commission at the census tract level to examine the percentage of individuals in each neighborhood in Metro Health Service area in the county who, what percentage of those residents have internet, high-speed internet access. And then we compared that data with all of our patients who are in those same neighborhoods. And what we found was that patients who live in neighborhoods without internet access, only about 1 in 7 of them, less than 1 in 7, 15% use the MyChart patient portal. But in neighborhoods where everyone has internet access, we have about 33% of folks who use the patient portal. So on the right-hand side of the slide there, it's a little bit hard to read, but you can see on the vertical axis this is the zip code level data for the region, and this is the percent of folks in the zip code who use the MyChart patient portal. And on the x-axis, the horizontal axis, we can see this is broadband internet access coverage in the zip code. And there's a little tiny number on there, the R-squared linear, for you statistics folks out there. That's the percentage of the variation that's in whether people use MyChart that is explained by whether they have internet. And so that number is about 68%. This is a very powerful association that we almost never find in most of our research projects. Notably, this association holds up when we use models that control for folks' education and income. So some folks might say, well, this is only affecting folks who are poor and who didn't finish high school, right? And so what we find is actually that's not the case. So this means that if you live in a neighborhood where you are on the disconnected side of the digital divide, you're twice as likely to not use our MyChart personal health record, the patient portal. So we have some projects that we have been working on with Wanda and Bill to begin to address this. We have a series of pilot projects. Oh, that's really good.
Yes.
The window is now open. Thank
Feeling
you. So what, and I think I'm going to hand this back to Amy to talk about the pilot projects that we're conducting. These are basic, I just want to state quickly though that these are really focused on measuring the extent to which there is some emerging evidence in medicine that shows that use of the patient portal is associated with better health outcomes. So that being able to use this to refill your prescriptions, communicate with your doctor, and schedule your appointments actually makes you healthier than other ways of interacting with the healthcare system. So we have some pilot projects where we are beginning to test that question and research that question among our own patients here in the city. But again, we can't do those projects with patients who do not have access. So thus we've really felt it's important for us to partner with folks like Connect Your Community and with Wanda at the Ashbury Center to begin to, help our patients who are not connected get connected and gain digital literacy skills.
So, this patient portal represents a multi-billion-dollar investment that health systems have made, that the federal government has made, and so the gap is that there's no training provided, and this is being found nationally that no more than a quarter of patients really anywhere are using the portals. There are a whole bunch of patients that if they just had 15 minutes of training, it makes a huge difference. There are a lot of other people that need an hour or 3 hours and 15 hours, and what we want to do is set up a model that no matter what people need, we have a way of addressing it. So community health workers, it's a sort of new position that only requires a high school education. We are training them at Tri-C to learn how to screen people for their digital literacy and connectivity, refer them, and then provide the MyChart training. And we're also looking to have United Way and maybe city agencies, everybody that has client contact, start screening them for digital literacy and screening them for connectivity, refer them to the community partners like Connect Your Community so that they can get they can get trained. Nobody else in the country is doing this. Cleveland really has an opportunity. Community health workers are cheap, and I think it could be a full employment act, to leverage young people who have the basic digital skills to teach people who don't.
Great,
Thank
very
you.
good. Well, thank you so much, particularly for such a packed presentation. There's no test, particularly on that 68% thing that you mentioned, Adam. And what we'll do next is I'd like to call up Lev Gonick, Chief Executive Officer from Digital C. I'd also like to bring Ken Kovach from the Director of RET, Red 3 Jobs Corps. And then, we have enough chairs. I'd also ask, we're going to be hearing also from students from ASC3. Howard, if you can please come up, maybe sit at the chairs to my left, your right. Howard Barksdale, Jamil Amir, Cynthia Felder, and Laverne Mitchell. And then, if we can too, Leon Wilson from Clean Foundation, if you want to come up as well. It'll be basically the next grouping of people as we finish our last half hour. I also want to make a note that several colleagues have some points and potentially questions. I'm kind of holding them right now, unless there's something really important for a point of clarification, we'll interrupt the presentations. But we're really happy that we had such a response in terms of people wanting to present today. So we're kind of limiting council's Q&A at this point to try to get through the presentations themselves. So again, if the students would want to come up in here in the front seats to be ready to go then as well. And we're going to turn it over to Lev Gonick, who's going to be discussing new strategies for connecting the unconnected. Welcome, Lev.
Thank you, Councilman. I don't know if you want to call up the presentation.
But, why don't you do some introductory comments?
Well, thanks to everybody. Good to see many old friends and some new folks that I haven't yet a chance to meet. My name is Lev Gonick, the CEO of Digital C. Some of you perhaps know me from my previous life as the Vice President of Case Western Reserve University, responsible for technology at the university. I'm going to be chatting with you today really around the imperative of connecting the unconnected, which is essentially the theme of today's entire presentation. And again, share with you that in our view, Connect the Unconnected is not about creating a second best internet for the unconnected or a best effort internet for the unconnected, but fundamentally providing the unconnected parts of our community with a world-class, leading internet infrastructure so that they can actually participate in the imperatives that you've heard about, which is access to healthcare, access to economics, access to applying for a job, access to being able to stay in touch with their friends and family. So those of you who do know me know that I'm really not particularly keen to be second best at anything. I want us to be first. In 2001, when I came to Cleveland from Silicon Valley, we made University Circle and Case Western Reserve the first university to provide gigabit internet access. In 2003, we created the first Wi-Fi mesh network for University Circle. In 2004, we created One Cleveland that became One Community as a way of extending broadband access out to the community. In 2005, we worked with Wanda Davis and provided the first high-speed connection to the community from the university. In 2008, we created the first model of fiber to the home in the entire country for a research project. In 2010, as others have mentioned, we were successful as a community in securing $75 million to advance our work, and we're really the gold standard in the nation for how communities can partner and work together through those investments. In 2014, we created a for-profit broadband company called Everstream. In 2016, we created Digital C to be, again, first in the nation. And today, I'm happy to share with you, and tomorrow we'll be cutting the actual ribbon, that we are creating the nation's first dedicated, world-class, world-leading network dedicated to connecting the unconnected. That is what we're doing together as a community in partnership, working not only to connect that infrastructure, but also to then work with the partners that you've heard from today to provide literacy, to extend that network to other communities in the broader Cleveland area. So again, at Digital C, we do three things: engage with leadership like you, work on data and open data, as the councilman has indicated, and then actually work on place-based activation, as we are doing with, you've heard from CEO of CMHA, from Jeff Patterson, about the work we're doing with them. We're working with Councilman Dow on activities in his ward with respect to place-based innovation. And obviously our work that we're doing on Unconnected is an important activity. The next piece I just want to share with you, sorry, that's okay, is really, you've heard today, really the problem. The problem is we're not first at all when it comes to connectivity. You might say we're third worst in the nation, and we should aspire to a whole lot more than that next. It's really about access, devices, and training. We've got the best in the land here when it comes to device support, and you've heard from the best trainers in the land. Access is one of the fundamental challenges that we're up against, and our goal is working with the community to solve that problem. So what you see here, folks, is the first ever dedicated network delivering to residents, as you've heard Director Patterson speak to, as you've heard, you would perhaps hear tomorrow, you'll be reading it in the press, on the men's homeless shelter here on Lakeside, soon the women's